Good morning. Welcome to the forecast discussion for May 30th, 2012. It is currently 8:26 a.m. and it is humid outside once again. Temperatures are already in the mid 60s to lower 70s, and dew points are already in the mid 60s throughout the entire northern mid-Atlantic. So what gives? We had a cold front move through. Isn't it supposed to be cooler? Well, it is going to be cooler today, with temperatures only in the upper 70s to lower 80s along the coast and lower to mid 80s everywhere else. However, the humidity, that's going to take another 24 hours as a secondary cold front slowly moves through the northern mid-Atlantic. So as a result, you end up with the overcast skies and the threat for scattered showers and humid conditions, but temperatures are clearly much cooler than what they were yesterday. When we take a look at the latest infrared satellite picture, you can see we have one disturbance right along the coast. We have basically tropical depression Beryl here that's going to remain out over the Atlantic, potentially becoming a tropical storm once again. But the key point here is going to remain out in the Atlantic and will have no impact on the northern mid-Atlantic whatsoever. And then here we have our cold front. Now this secondary cold front behind it has much dry air. Temperatures are pretty much near normal for this time of year behind this cold front. But the key point, much drier air. So we have one more day of humid conditions, and then after that, the humidity backs off and cooler temperatures prevail for the rest of the week. But in order to get through this cold front, we've got to deal with a few scattered showers, especially on through this afternoon. When we take a look at the latest radar, you can see the scattered showers are developing right along the coast. I don't expect any heavy downpours with these showers, but they will be a bit of a nuisance, reducing visibility at times and producing minor ponding on the roadway. And these showers will remain a threat through this afternoon until the primary cold front or secondary cold front moves through the northern mid-Atlantic. So let's take a look at the latest model guidance from the Penn State EWOL website. Again, we're using the European model guidance here. Now for this evening, we have our cold front moving through. Here's what's left of Beryl moving off of the mid-Atlantic coast. The cold front moves through, lower humidity builds in, skies start to clear for this evening, and the threat for showers, of course, will end as well. So I'd say about 6-7 p.m. look for skies to clear. If you're going to the Mets and Phillies game for this evening, I am expecting dry conditions for the baseball game, and you'll notice a marked decrease in the humidity in the evening hours as temperatures fall off into the 50s and lower 60s. For tomorrow, high pressure will be in control. We can expect high pressure in control for much of tomorrow into Friday afternoon with clear skies, temperatures near normal in the mid to upper 70s, maybe a few lower 80s over southwestern New Jersey, and much lower humidity. The key point here is that it will be dry for both tonight, Thursday, and Friday afternoon. However, unfortunately for this upcoming weekend, a strong disturbance that will be digging in the Ohio and Tennessee River Valley will intensify and cause a low pressure system to strengthen over the Great Lakes. Now, because of the track of the slow pressure, basically from the Tennessee River Valley through the eastern Great Lakes and towards New England, what we'll basically see is an onshore flow from the Atlantic, and that will mean the increased potential for widespread showers Friday night on through Saturday. And Saturday is going to be a rather cool day with temperatures in the lower to mid 70s for highs throughout the entire northern mid-Atlantic because we have the wind coming right off of the Atlantic Ocean. So as a result, it's going to be a rather cool and wet day on Saturday. By Sunday and Monday, our low pressure system explodes over the Canadian Maritimes. Now, this is mostly because of an interaction with what's left of Beryl. So what we basically have here with this interaction with Beryl is an enhancement of the northern Atlantic weather pattern. So as a result, instead of a ridge building into the northern mid-Atlantic for Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, what we end up with is basically a northwesterly flow on the backside of a deep trough. So what that essentially means is that high pressure will build in from the Great Lakes. We'll end up with cooler conditions, but dry conditions, I think, for Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And for the most part, I think we'll end up with temperatures near to slightly below normal, with basically ranging from the lower to upper 70s for highs throughout the region. And I'm also expecting dry conditions. Now, there are some models that, especially the European model guidance, that keeps the threat for scattered showers in the forecast. However, I think that this whole pattern here is going to be shifted a little bit further east, and as a result, we'll be on what's called the confluent side of this jet stream. So that basically means drier conditions can be expected over the northern mid-Atlantic and eastern Great Lakes. However, if you're down towards, let's say, Virginia, North Carolina, and even out towards eastern New England, you'll have a better threat for scattered showers because that's where the low pressure systems will be migrating. But for the northern mid-Atlantic, I'm expecting dry and cooler conditions with low humidity heading in for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and even Wednesday. As we look at this entire pattern going through the long range, basically because the northern Atlantic pattern is so amplified, it basically locks in with, I think, what will be an upper level low, a little bit further east, more towards the Canadian Maritimes. This trough will be a little bit deeper, and this ridge will be a little bit further to the east. So what I'm expecting is on through next week a northwesterly flow with temperatures slowly moderating back into the 80s, but our humidity remaining on the low side. So overall, not a bad pattern really as you look at the weather pattern moving forward. So that is your forecast discussion for today. Of course, I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. You can follow the latest weather information at nynjpaweather.com and nynjpaweather on Twitter and Facebook. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there.